What's going on, everybody? It's Coos. Welcome to Coos' Corner live stream. Excited to be joined here in a few minutes by Mr. Eugene Napoleon, former Mountaineer great. Going to talk some Mountaineer football. And I apologize if during this broadcast I sound like Dana Holgerson clearing my throat because I got allergy issues and they've kicked into full gear right now. So I apologize in advance. If y'all got any questions you want me to ask Mr. Napoleon, shoot them to me in the chat. I'll try my best to get to them all if there's a lot. I'm really excited about this. As a Mountaineer fan, this is the kind of stuff that can excite you. Hope everybody's having a good night. And have had a good day, good Monday. Mountaineers got a big win over the weekend. I'm still riding high over that win. That was a big win. I know a lot of people don't see it that way, but we needed that one bad. And the guys come out and got it. I was happy for them. Coach Brown and his staff did a phenomenal job. They did everything they promised they would do. I really wish the fans would stop being so negative. Enjoy the win. That they're hard to come by. Remember, if any of you have questions, post them in the comment box. We're waiting on Mr. Napoleon. I was a little bit late getting him the link. So while we're waiting, what do you guys think about the game on Saturday? How you doing?
I'm blessed. Could you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine. What's going on with you, man?
I was just sitting here talking about how I'm really happy about that win on Saturday.
Oh, yes.
That was a big one.
Much needed.
Absolutely. I felt like it was a must-win game, and the guys got it done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, we definitely needed to do that, and I'm glad that we did. I actually called that game. I do the pregame college game day show with Skylar Callahan. So I actually said we would win. Can't wait to do the post-game interview. I think we do it. We'll probably shoot it on Wednesday. It airs on Thursday.
Awesome. Good deal.
So,
where can that be seen at or heard?
It's sponsored by Sports Illustrated, so it's usually on their platform. It's Mountaineer Maven, sponsored by Sports Illustrated.
Right. Okay. That's the same platform you do your Napoleon's Corner segment on too. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to post a link to that and some of all your other work in the description box of the video. That way, everybody can check it out.
I appreciate you, man. I really do.
Not a problem. I appreciate you coming on. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm kind of killing time waiting on a few more people to join us here.
Not a problem. Matter of fact, while you do that, I like that West Virginia shirt, so I'm gonna go put on something Mountaineerish.
That'll work for me. Don't feel the need to, but if you want to, go right ahead.
I'll be right back.
All right. Mr. Napoleon stepped away to go put on a West Virginia shirt for us. Oh, we got a comment I'm missing here. What's up? What is up, Sam, the man? Got to see you in here, my man. I'm well. Mr. Napoleon says he's well. He stepped away for a second. He's going to go put on something gold and blue.
All right, here you go. Now I feel a little bit better.
There we go.
Now I feel a lot better.
There we go. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Yep. Everybody, this is Mr. Eugene Napoleon, Mountaineer great. Most of you probably know who he is already. Running back for the 1988 National Championship team. The National Championship runner-up team should have been National Championship team. Were it not for a crazy injury. The luck of the Mountaineers, right?
Absolutely.
And he's also involved in a lot of other things outside of football. I'll let him talk about some of that. I don't want to steal his thunder, but I'm putting links in the description box to some of his work where you can go check it out for yourself. And I'm even going to some of it I'm actually going to try to play here during the broadcast as well for my viewers here. But Eugene, I guess let's just get started. First off, I guess talk a little bit about what you're doing right now outside of football, post playing days, and what you got going on in your life at the moment.
Sure. Well, January, God willing, it'll be 24 years. I'm a special education teacher.
Okay, cool.
At the middle school level, 6th, 7th, 8th grade in Linden, New Jersey, which I'm very proud of. So I'm a best-selling author. I have 2 books that both were Barnes & Nobles and Amazon.com bestsellers. One was Dream Real. That was my first book. And the other one I just put out last January. It's called Reflections. It's a motivational quotes book.
Okay.
I'm the CEO and president of an independent record label that's called Nap Vision Entertainment, which my wife and I, we own for the last 25 years. So also a motivational speaker. So for the last 20 years or so, I've been involved heavily in the music entertainment industry. Was a sports agent for 10 years when I retired from playing. So my hands pretty much is in a little bit of everything. And I thank God for that because it keeps me busy. But my wife and I also have a podcast show called the Nap and Ny'a Show. As well as you know, I have the Napoleon Corner Show, which is more of an inspirational show that I do on a platform that's sponsored by Sports Illustrated, Mountaineer Maven. And then I do the College Game Day show with Scholar Callahan that speaks pre and post game West Virginia football, as well as the other, collegiate games as well. So a lot going on. Wear a bevy of different hats.
Sounds like it. And you are a busy man. No time for, but you still take time to sit down with me. I appreciate that.
Oh, are you kidding me? Listen, it's always fun when we can sit down and talk Mountaineer football.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And look, I know you've been on a couple other shows last week, so I'm hoping, obviously, some of those topics, you're probably going to have to repeat yourself.
Not a problem.
That's okay, but I'm hoping we can hit a couple of new things tonight. A couple of things I jotted down here we'll touch on later, but we'll start out. You talked about your wife there with you in the business.
Yes.
Will you touch on her accolades a little bit, please?
Oh, absolutely. So we've been fortunate. Her first album, you're talking 25 years ago, we put an album out, and it's right here behind me, actually. That's the Embrace album. It went gold, some over 500,000 copies worldwide. Very, very proud of that album because it really got her career started. The album here, this is a single that's from WBNC Radio in Philadelphia. That's a platinum award with over 3.5 million listeners. We just got that a few months ago. She just got another one for the current single that's out now. It's called Chillin' With My Baby. We just picked up her second platinum award just yesterday.
Awesome.
We drove to Philadelphia. We picked it up. So her career has been stellar, and we're so appreciative. You know, God has been so good. So she has 16 #1 hit singles, you know, a gold-selling album, 2 platinum awards, and she's been Grammy considered twice for an album that we put out, her second album, Something for Everybody, back in 2017, and then a record that we released a few months ago called We Are Strong. That was Grammy considered as well in 2020. So what a great career, you know.
Absolutely.
We actually have her streaming concert, which will be Friday, November 26th. I think if I didn't, I'll send you the link to it. Tickets are $20. You can order directly from the link that I'll send you here shortly.
Okay.
And we're excited about it because it's kind of like a cross between, you know, a live stream concert / documentary. What I mean by that is because she's literally sitting down and she's talking about the reason why she wrote, you know, all the songs, and then she'll actually perform it. So it's pretty cool. It's about an hour, you know, worth of great entertainment. I think she performed 14 of her 16 #1 hits. But the one that I'm really excited about is 304. She wrote 304, which was the title track to my documentary, Inside the Jersey, which is now on Amazon. That documentary is about my playing days at West Virginia. So my wife, she wrote the title song, which also hit #1 on the R&B Soul Effects TV chart for 5 straight weeks. So what was great about that, every word of that song is about West Virginia.
Cool.
You know, yeah, I'm really excited about that because for those who've never been to West Virginia, it gives them a little bit of a peek inside the great state and what West Virginia is all about, which, like I said, we're really excited about that particular single.
Good deal. It's a perfect segue because I think I got that queued up. If you don't mind, I'm going to play a little snippet of that for my viewers. Absolutely. If you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Maybe I will. Hold on.
Okay.
See if this will work. Can you see it?
Let's see here. Nope, not yet.
Let's try it again.
Okay.
I really want them to see this. If not, I'll link to it later.
I got you.
I don't know why it's not working. It's not letting me click the share button.
Ah, okay.
For some reason. Oh well. Anyway, I will I'll put a link to it in my description box. That way my viewer can go check it out for themselves. Sorry about that.
No, please.
Technical difficulty. I actually tried it earlier and it worked.
Listen, You know what's that, and that's what's funny about technology. When it works, it works. When it don't, oh boy.
Yep. Any of my viewers, if you saw my screen, maybe it worked and I just didn't know it. If you saw my screen when I put that video up, let me know in the comments, and I'll try it again later. But so the documentary is about I did put a link to the documentary in the description box for everybody that anybody wants to check it out. It's on Amazon, Inside the Jersey.
Appreciate you.
And I also put a link to the Mountaineer Maven. Eugene, he mentioned a segment he does with Skylar Callahan called Mountaineer Maven. And I'll post a link to that as well. His latest segment called, well, you go ahead and tell them what it's about.
Yeah,
Eugene.
This latest one was Giving Flowers.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't really understand. There's nothing wrong with giving somebody their praise and giving somebody a compliment and letting them know that you're appreciative of what they're doing, their hard work. You know what I mean? So that's what I meant by giving flowers. Nothing wrong with that at all. My mother used to always say, give me my flowers now while I can smell them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to do a segment on that because I think sometimes we forget that there's nothing wrong with me applauding somebody else's success, you know, or giving someone else credit for something that they've done. And my wife and I both, and our son Brandon, he's a GA up at University of Buffalo. He started his coaching career about 2 years ago, in the same exact thing. We are big on that. You know, organic support is so important. So I see no reason why someone wouldn't praise somebody else. You know what I mean? That's really what it's all about.
Right. Yeah, and I really appreciate you sharing that because that's something I've struggled with at times. I've been on both sides of that. I have struggled to give people their flowers at times, and I've struggled to receive. I'm the type of person who struggles to receive flowers at times. So I really appreciated that message. I thought it was very appropriate for me, and hopefully it's something I can take. And even in this YouTube thing that I'm doing now, I think it'll help me in that because it really sheds some light on, you know, when I first got into this, I'm a very competitive person by nature. So when I'd see another YouTuber doing well, I'd get a little bit jealous about it. You know, I'd be like, man, that guy, why can't I do that? But if you step back and realize, number one, that guy may have been doing it longer than me. 2, totally different approach. 3, you know, there's a lot of things involved there that I may not be seeing. All I'm seeing is how many subscribers he's got or whatever.
Right.
And instead of being jealous, now I sit back and think, you know what? I now know the work it takes, the time it takes to put into this. So I'm gonna give that guy kudos instead of being jealous of him.
Right.
And you know what? Not only it's helped me, it's helped me feel better about my own projects and my own videos, just by giving other folks their flowers. That makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I'll be honest with you. Let me tell you something. People don't really understand the work that it takes to put into these podcasts and these type of shows. Listen, you really have to work diligently at this thing. And I appreciate being on your show. So thank you for allowing me to come on your show. That's another thing that I think people don't really understand either. You really have to step outside yourself when you're blessed to have someone like yourself want to interview me. This is not just about me. It's about really pretty much inspiring and shedding some light and answering some questions, talking about football and life in general.
Right.
To me, that's what it's all about. So when people don't take that serious enough, sometimes I feel bad for them. You know what I mean? Because the blessing really is in sharing. The blessing isn't in keeping. The blessing is in sharing.
Right. Right. Absolutely. That's good stuff right there.
Absolutely.
Let's if you don't mind, I'm gonna switch to football now.
Absolutely.
Would you talk about a little bit about? All right, I know you transferred from Pitt, right, to West Virginia.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about A, why you chose Pitt to begin with, and B, what made you transfer over to West Virginia?
Oh yeah. I was a big Tony Dorsett fan, huge Tony Dorsett fan. As a matter of fact, we were pen pals going into, I want to say, my 8th grade year in high school. I mean, in elementary school. that summer, my mom sent me to the offense defense football camp in Trumbull, Connecticut. Tony Dorsett was actually the running back coach there, and it was a dream come true. So I actually won the MVP, being the best running back there. I think there was like 35, 40 other backs, and I won the MVP for that week in camp. And he always told me, man, when you learn how to use all of your God-given skills, you're going to be a hell of a tailback, you know?
Right.
I watched him shred Notre Dame for about 303 yards, a few touchdowns. And I'll never forget, I was 7 years old, and I told my mom, she was in the kitchen cooking, and my mother was always the type of person, if you went and you talked to her, she'll stop whatever she was doing to sit and listen to what you had to say. So I got her out the kitchen, and we're watching the game, and she said, "What is all this yelling about?" I said, "Ma, I know exactly what college I want to go to. I want to go to that college because Tony Dorsett, obviously, Pittsburgh, number 33, the big, gold and blue, which that was always my favorite combination colors. It still is to this day." So I told my mom that at 7 years old that I was going to Pittsburgh. And as God saw fit, I went to St. Joseph's of the Palisades High School. Had a great high school career. Could have went to any school in the entire country, but I committed to Pittsburgh because that was my dream school since I was 7 years old. Now, when I got to Pitt, we had I think we were the second best recruiting class in the country that year. We had, I think, 23 scholarships or 22 scholarships. 19 of us were high school Americans. So I was they didn't have stars back then. You had blue chip, gold chip, or whatever. I was considered a blue chip high school American. So had about 100 or so offers every Division I school in the country, but Pitt was my dream school. Of course, West Virginia, everybody recruited me, but that was something that as a kid, whenever you get a chance to realize your dream, you take it.
Right.
So
absolutely.
Going to Pitt my freshman year, I didn't really think about anything else other than the fact that it was something I've always wanted to do. So when I got on campus, I remember telling my mom the first week on campus, I'm like, "Mom, wow, it rained almost every day in Pittsburgh." I'll never forget it. I was so upset. It rained every day. So we're in camp, and I said, "Wow, doesn't seem like the same school that I visited just a few short months ago." But the biggest reason, I didn't get redshirted. So I made the travel team as a true freshman. Myself, the great Mark Stepnowski, Tony Saragusa. We were in the same freshman class. Brian Davis. So we didn't get redshirted. So for me, it would have just been a matter of time. You know what I mean? Things would have probably fell in place. But my oldest sister died going into the 4th week, which was, we were playing Boston College at home. She passed away a week before that game. She had an aneurysm of the brain. And the way that it was handled was the real reason why I left Pittsburgh. I just didn't, I felt there was some untruths told. They basically lied to my mom. The way it was handled after the funeral was so abrupt and so mishandled that I knew this is not the right place for me. You understand?
Yeah, I do.
It was clear that major college, that was my first taste outside of all the hoopla with recruiting and all of that, being a blue chip All-American. You could imagine. I mean, I visited Oklahoma on an official visit. Right. So, you know what I mean? Like, I was that guy. That paled in comparison to really understanding the harsh reality of what major college football or major college sports are when you deal with a death in your family and it's not handled the right way. It clearly clicked in my head that, wow, this was not the right fit for me. So I decided to transfer after her funeral. I took 5 more visits. West Virginia was one of those 5 visits. And when I got to Morgantown, I'm going to tell you something. It was the most it was something that I needed at the time. And I met this older couple on High Street. I tell the story all the time because it's very, very relevant to why I picked West Virginia. They probably didn't even know who I was. But when I tell you, they took the time, they talked to me for about an hour, like I was their grandson.
Wow. That's awesome.
It was the most humbling experience because God puts people in your path when you most need it. And God knew I needed that because it wasn't just about football for me at that point. You know what I mean? Right. I needed something bigger than football. And sitting down with Coach Nehlen and that staff of his and just him being the kind of man he was, had I visited West Virginia out of high school, I would have went to West Virginia out of high school, to be honest with you, because it was a better fit for me. And that's probably where I should have gone in the beginning. But God put me right where I needed to be because when I transferred there, immediately it was a different, I'm from the inner city, Jersey City, New Jersey. So that whole setting and that whole surrounding is what I really needed. And that, that's why I wound up in Morgantown. And I'm so best decision, one of the top 5 to 10 best decisions in my entire life.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah.
And right now with West Virginia having a losing record, I've seen a lot of fans on social media saying, well, if we don't start winning, all these recruits are not going to commit. And and your story right there shows that these kids are looking at way more than wins and losses.
They are.
It's so much.
I'm going to take this with me so I can actually plug this in. I don't want it to die. That's because listen, we're going to talk for a while.
That's fine.
You're 100% right. Listen, let me tell you something. West Virginia is a special place. And these young people understand that you're going to get more out of your college career at WVU than just football. And that's something I tell when I go do my speaking engagements, I let every parent, every young person know, if you pick school just because of football, you're making a huge mistake because this game is not promised to everybody. So you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know let's say if you get injured. If you pick a school just based on its football program or based on a coach, and unfortunately right now we see what happens with college coaches. These guys all over the place. They're chasing the money, and no disrespect to them for that. You want to coach at the highest level, and you want to make as much money as you possibly can. The one thing about Coach Nehlen, that wasn't how he saw things. And that's what made me understand the importance of just being with a coach and with a staff like that really got it. And that's why I try to tell parents when they're picking these schools for their kids, you got to pick the right program, and you got to pick the right program for the right reasons. West Virginia is an awesome place to go to school because it's bigger than just football.
Right.
If I flip this around, would that mess up your settings?
I don't think so.
So let me see. If I do this, there you go.
It's good.
Okay, perfect. So for me, I look at it like I hope that these young people understand recruiting is recruiting. And one of the biggest thing about college coaches when they're recruiting these young people, they're going to tell you anything and everything they have to just to get you on their campus. It's a business, right?
Right.
You might as well go someplace where those 4 years or 5 years is going to set you up for the next 35 or 40 years of your life. I'm 55 years old. And I'm still talking about West Virginia football. So think about that. I graduated at WVU, back in the late 80s, right?
Right.
And all these years later, part of my success in my life stems from some of the things I learned, obviously from my mom, but Coach Nehlen extended that. That's when you picked the right school. I still talk to Coach Nehlen to this day.
Awesome.
That's when you picked the right school because you had a staff and you had men of character who gave you something more than just X's and O's. So for any parent that I talk to, I always let them know, you will never find me without something with WV on it. Either a ring or I will always have something, because that's the respect, the honor that I give that university, that great state, and Mountaineer Nation, because people really don't understand what going to WVU meant for me and my family, especially at the time I chose West Virginia. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I tell everybody that it ain't about wins or loss. Everybody, yeah, of course you want to win a national championship. Of course you want to win your conference. Of course you want to win games. But it pales in comparison to the life you're going to have after you retire from playing. Right. I played professionally in the AFL, the CFL. Listen, none of that stuff matters if you can't go back to your university and feel like you're stepping on that campus as if you're coming back home. Every time I come to West Virginia, that's how I feel.
Okay.
And my point is, it's not just because of football.
Right.
That's when you know you picked the right place.
Right. You actually mentioned two things I want to talk about in that story. First, let's go back. You just said something that when you go back, you still feel at home.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of controversy about when under the previous staff, there was some controversy that past players were not treated with the respect that they should have been. Did you experience anything like that?
Now, I'm glad you listen. This is great. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm gonna put this in the context where it makes. See, for me, I'm not the type of person that needs anybody to roll out a red carpet for me. That's not my temperament. Never has been. Right.
Right.
So when I go back, I've never experienced any mistreatment or you understand? Yes. But then again, I'm not the type of person that's looking for anything, if that makes sense.
It does.
So I think it comes down to the temperament and how people feel. Now, what I will say, with the previous staff, there were times when I could understand how my former teammates and even players before me and way before me, and then even past me, would feel a certain type of way, because there's no way you come back to your campus and it's a hard time getting into a football game.
Yeah.
There's no, that should never happen. And this is the reason why when you see other universities like Miami and some of these other programs, Oklahoma, Nebraska, these USC, you go back to these games and it's packed with players on the sideline, and because they understand the importance of the alumni coming back and showing that kind of love and support of your program. Because, not for nothing, it's the alumni that help build the program.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I give a lot of credence to, I talked to Fred Smalls, Boom, and some of the other players who played at West Virginia before me. Those guys, I respect those guys. Brian Joswiak, Big Joes, and those guys. I respect those guys because they paved the way. Darryl Talley, they paved the way. So to be able to come back and share our stories with some of the would-be recruits or current players, or that stuff is important. So to block that or to make that more difficult, you're going to have players feel some sort of kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was actually a couple who have now come back since Coach Brown's been there who wouldn't come back before.
Yes.
At least planning to come back. I don't know if they've made the trip yet. Pat McAfee being one of them.
Yeah, it's important. Pat, great player. Great. And I heard his situation. Great player.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that university, and that's the whole thing too, it incorporates everybody. So when you have a coach who may not understand what West Virginia is all about, and this is why it's so difficult. You can't, same way I always say this, you can't just bring any type of student athlete into Morgantown, just like you can't bring just any old coach into Morgantown. They have to understand the tradition. They have to understand what West Virginia is all about. And if you don't understand that, you're going to do yourself and our fine university and our culture and our fans a disservice. You really have to understand what West Virginia is all about. So I'm passionate about that because I understand, like, if you think that West Virginia is just a run-of-the-mill job or you're going to come and use it as a stepping stone, that's the wrong idea. That's the wrong idea. You're talking about one of the top 14 and 13 most winningest programs in the entire country, in the entire history of NCAA football. So you have to come in there with that kind of respect to understand this isn't a stepping stone job. You know, if you're not there to really build on the culture and the great tradition, then you shouldn't be there. So I feel that way when the players come back. We feel that way. That's why we want to come back, because we know how important it is to put on that flying WV and go out there and represent for the state, for the university, for our families, you know, for the fans. We know how important that is, and I'm very passionate about that.
Awesome. I'm glad you answered that, because that's something, you know, when you hear things on social media, like you said, you don't know if some guys are just blown out of proportion. Like I heard the other day that just a couple weeks ago, there was some guys back at a game, and there's apparently some former players complaining because they couldn't get a free T-shirt. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's something that should be expected, or if that's just somebody wanting more than, you know, I don't know. Like you said, everybody's expectations are different.
Right. And that's a good way to put it. You know, expectations are different. And again, my wife has come back with me several times. I was just there. What was it? I did the speaking engagement for Martin Luther King's breakfast. I was a keynote speaker a year ago.
Okay. And
I was honored to come back, you know, to my university to do that. You know, at the Mountaineer, just had a great time. So the expectations, you're 100% right. It just depends on what you're expecting. And I look at it this way. I got my degree from WVU. I was fortunate enough and blessed to play, you know, on some great teams at WVU. A lot of the players that I played with are like brothers to me to this day. So for me, all of that is a blessing, man. What else could I possibly ask for?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
What else could I possibly want out of that situation? So, but that's always been my mentality, you know, and I'm not speaking ill of anybody that thinks, you know, differently than I just know for me, just being able to go back to a game every now and again and walk on that field, and that's heaven to me. That's fine for me.
Yeah. And from what I understand, from what I'm hearing, is that Coach Brown has embraced that. One of the first things he did when he came on was he wanted to bring back a lot of the alumni, the former players, because he feels like they are critical for the, you know, continuing to build the program. I mean, they're the foundation. And
Absolutely.
he wants those folks to have, those guys to have access and be able to instill into these new guys, you know.
Smart. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be on a Zoom call along with, like you just said, a lot of the former players from different classes as well. Wasn't just our 88 class, but and it was awesome just to get a chance to hear him speak about the processes and what he wants to do moving forward and how he wants to build the program. Listen, you know, I was very impressed with the direction, the sound, recruiting processes that he already had in place, and what he's looking to do even moving, you know, past this. It's impressive when you hear a guy talk, and it's not, again, you want to win, but it's doing it the right way. Coach Nehlen did it the right way with that staff. And I look at Coach Brown as a younger version of a Don Nehlen as far as his character and his morals and what he knows to be right. Again, that's when you know you pick the right staff. You know, when morally, you know, you're going to make really good decisions based on your morals and your character, and you win with character. I'm an old school guy. I really believe that. You win with character. You bring the right type of student athletes on your campus, into your university, into your community, into your state. You win with character. So we're going to have to be a little bit more patient and let this man do his work. And I really do believe he's going to put a good product on that field between next year and the season after. Let those 2 recruiting classes come in fully. Let him implement his system fully. And then you'll get a chance to see whether or not he's the right man for the job. You can't get rid of a man 2.5 years in.
I agree. Yeah, I went on somewhat of a rant in the last video I posted on my channel about the negativity. Even after we won a game, people still complaining about play calling. Daigie's not, he's not completing 100% of his passes. I I got a little bit irritated, to be honest, because it's like, what do they have to beat everybody 50-0 for fans to be happy? I don't know what they want.
It's a tough, it's tough because here's the thing. Like I said, when I retired from playing, I was a sports agent for 10 years. So I was fortunate enough to be on the other side of it. And if I represented a coach, and let's just say that, Coach Brown, let's just say he was let go, right? I wouldn't want, if I represented a coach, I wouldn't want my coach, I wouldn't put my client in that situation because it'd be unstable. And the first thing I would think about, well, why would you go here and I'll fight for you to get this job when if you don't win and they gave you an extension, they're going to get rid of you after an extension? That doesn't, you know what I mean? You don't want to put yourself in that position. So it'd be real difficult for West Virginia to get a high quality coach if we were to treat Coach Brown as if we didn't care about the tenure, the time that it takes to build a program. That's the thing that I think maybe fans don't really understand. This whole thing is a process. There's no way you can win at this level if you don't have the recruits. It's very true. You have to have the horses. You just have to, right? So that takes some time to get the type of kids into the program that's going to run your offense, your defense, your special teams, your philosophy, all of that. You got to give them some time. And I think we're going to be fine. I really do. Is this year a disappointment? Listen, coming off of last year, the COVID year, winning a bowl game, building on what you're building on now, having a top 25 recruiting class, which people said that we couldn't do.
Yeah.
Listen, all of that pales in comparison to what we're going to have a year to 2 years down the road once these 2 particular recruiting classes mature into what he needs them to mature into. That's what I'm waiting for.
I agree 100%. And I guess I'm sure you've heard the news that Texas Tech fired their coach today.
Yes.
He's got a winning record this year. He's 5-3.
Now, think about that.
I don't get it.
That's when I've never seen West Virginia get rid of a coach in midseason. Have you?
I've not, no. And I don't expect them to. And I don't even expect them to get rid of him after the season. I think they understand. I mean, Coach Brown Coach Brown is one of the most honest, transparent coaches you'll ever hear in an interview or a press conference. He told us from the get-go, it's going to take a while to build what we want to build here.
Right.
He never said we're going to come out year one and win the conference. He said we got to build it. And, he had come up with the slogan, trust the climb. I think he done that for a reason. A climb is not something you do overnight. It takes time.
Absolutely.
So I think he knew. I think once he saw the landscape of what he was, the recruits he had there when he came versus what he needed versus the level of competition, he knew, okay, look, we're not going to come in and win day one. We're going to probably have to have a 2, 3, 4 years of recruiting to get the players in we need and we want before we can start really achieving our goals.
Absolutely.
That's the way he's never said it that straightforward, but
you're 100% right. Because here's the thing. Philosophy is very important, right? And I don't think people understand when you switch over from one staff to another, that whole philosophy has to change as well.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't change overnight because you still have spillover from the prior staff that recruited, those other young people, these other young men, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's going to take a minute to get them to even buy into your system if they decide to buy into your system. This is why there's so many runoffs when you go other places and you see new coaching staff come in. You might see 10, 12, 15 transfers. It's because those kids are not buying into that system, or that particular staff didn't recruit that kid because it doesn't fit his system. Like all of that has to be flushed out before you start winning games. That's one. And then two, West Virginia, in my humble opinion, has always done it the right way. You're not going to do anything that's not credible to get a young person to come to your university to win football games. I love that. And I will always stand by that. Do it the right way. So when you build that foundation, as we have over all these years, people can respect it because they know we're not going to do just anything to win a football game. We're not going to, lie and cheat and all of that stuff to win a game. It's bigger than that. So that's the other thing that fans have to be patient about as well.
Right. I agree with that. I'm gonna jump around if that's okay.
Of course.
You mentioned earlier about your days in the AFL and CFL. Can you talk about that a little bit and what that experience was like, and how long did you play in those leagues?
Sure. I went to the AFL, and I'm gonna tell you, and shout out to Major Harris. Shout out to Major Harris. Major was playing in Columbus, I want to say at the time. And he actually was the one who talked me into even going to the AFL. I didn't know too much about it. And I watched one or two games of him, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. Because the AFL didn't have my natural position. I'm a tailback naturally. Right. So in the AFL, if you're the fullback, those guys are 235, 240 pounds. They double on defense as the Mike or Jack linebacker. So at 180 pounds, I wasn't being anybody's Jack linebacker.
I hear you.
So the only natural position that I could have played was kickoff return, specialist in that league, slot receiver, or DB.
Right.
It wasn't my natural position as a tailback, but I thank God because I was, an athlete, I was able to play slot receiver, kickoff return specialist, and a little bit of corner on defense.
Okay.
So I wound up playing for the Tampa Bay Storm. 1992 was my rookie year in the AFL. And then mid-season, I wound up going to the Orlando Predators. So two of the best franchises in the AFL, and wound up playing for a world championship. My rookie year, we wound up playing in the Arena Bowl against Detroit. We lost, but we were there. So what a great transition from, playing for a national championship in college and then playing for, a world championship, AFL championship in the Arena League. And the very next season, I wound up getting signed by the Saskatchewan Roughriders in the CFL. So I went up to Saskatchewan. It was the craziest thing. At that time, they only took a certain amount of American players up there, on their rosters. So I wound up going into a situation where they had a stud tailback who was actually holding out for more money, who was an American tailback. And I went all the way to the last cut. And would you know that he decided 2-3 days before the season started to me, pretty much saying, listen, because you know the playbook, because you went all the way through camp, you played in all the preseason games, if something happens, we definitely want you back up here. I decided at that point, let me go. I wound up working for Wall Street. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wound up working for Wall Street, deciding to start my record business at that time, which was an amazing business move. And it wound up just being so successful that by the time the AFL called me back and the CFL even called me back, I was already, I think, 2 to 3 years in to a very successful career in the music entertainment industry with my wife. So I decided to go ahead and ink another deal. I actually inked a guaranteed contract to come back to the CFL. And what happened? That team folded, unfortunately. And then I wound up going back to the AFL. I played in New York and messed around and got hurt the last preseason game and had to make a decision. hurt the lower part of my back, and I hurt my. So I said, well, I know good and well that once I sign this, I'm not going to come back at 34, 35. You know what I mean? So
right.
It wound up being the right decision for me and my family. But a great experience to play professionally after college. Mm-hmm. Because I'll tell you one thing that it taught me. Obviously, the NFL is that's the top shelf. But professional sports means you get paid for your skill. Mm-hmm. So you think about back then, you had the NFL, the CFL, the AFL, and back then you did have the World League. So you had those 4 leagues. When the World League folded, you just had the NFL, the CFL, and the AFL.
Okay.
There in one high school in New Jersey, which is Elizabeth High School, you have more kids running around Elizabeth High School than you have playing in 3 professional football leagues. Interesting. Wow. It kind of gives you a perspective that I don't care which one of those 3 leagues you play in, not everybody's going to play professional football after college.
Right.
So if you're fortunate enough to suit up in one game in the NFL, the CFL, or the AFL, you are truly blessed. Because it's such a small number. There was back when I played, you had over 5,200 kids in Elizabeth High School. It's one of the biggest high schools in the state of New Jersey. In those 3 leagues, I want to say it was maybe 1,700 professional athletes.
Wow.
Yeah. Think about that.
That's great.
I mean, yeah. So that's my point. When you really put it in perspective, you understand it wouldn't matter, obviously, which one of those leagues you played in. It would still be considered a blessing because not everybody's going to play after college.
Right. And you're still getting paid to play. I mean, that you can't, not most people don't get to do that.
No, right? Not at all. Not at all. And it was a blessing. It was really, I'm again, just like in college, I made so many lifelong friends in the AFL that to this day, some of my teammates I still stay in touch with on both ends of it, Tampa Bay and in Orlando. And it's funny, my quarterback in Tampa Bay was Jay Gruden.
Really?
Yep. Awesome, man. And he was something else.
Wow. That's cool.
Oh, he can sling it. Yeah.
If you don't mind, touch a little bit on your days at Morgantown and just that 87 season leading into the 88 national championship game.
Yeah.
Just talk about that a little bit if you don't care.
Oh, definitely.
And about Maven too.
Oh,
and the role he played on that team.
Absolutely. We knew going into, I have to go back to the 86 team that played Oklahoma State. We played Oklahoma State in the Sun Bowl. So Thurman Thomas was a senior. Barry Sanders was a sophomore. It was also my sophomore year at WVU. You kind of got an understanding of how good we were going to be with that team. Then you flip into, what we did in 88. You kind of saw it coming. We kind of knew that we had something special because everybody to a man decided not to go home that summer, decided to train, decided to put, all of us decided to really put a commitment in being as good as we possibly can be. Major Harris, because everybody asks me this, what was it like playing with him? One of the greatest all-around football players that I've ever had the pleasure of playing with. Major was a leader, bar none, because he never got rattled, was never one of those guys that was tight in the midst of a big game, always cool, calm, and collected, and literally the leader on and off the football field, right? 88, going into the season, Coach Nehlen and that staff did a great job of preparing us for every game, but keeping us even keeled. That's hard too when you have a really talented team. You win your first 2 or 3 ball games, and now you're looking ahead because you may see somebody on your schedule that, we should beat them by 30, and you're looking ahead.
Right.
They did such a tremendous job of let's stay in the moment. Let's stay in the moment. Let's stay, if we're preparing for Rutgers, we're preparing for Rutgers. We're not worrying about, Virginia Tech, the next week. We're preparing for Rutgers. And I really believe if it were not for that type of staff, it would have been real difficult to keep us in the moment, because once we were 5-0, you couldn't tell us that we was not going to go on. We knew we were going undefeated.
Yeah.
But they kept us even keeled.
Yeah.
It was a real special team. And I think it was a real special team because we had really special coaches, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Great. That's great stuff right there. Coach Nehlen, I say he may be one of the most respected coaches, not only at West Virginia, but all of college football. I mean, he's just a revered individual. And I think it's not only his success on the field, but just the kind of human being he is that really has made him so special.
I told Coach Nehlen, probably last time I spoke, a matter of fact, I got to give him a call, probably maybe 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I check in on him from time to time, maybe 2 months ago. And he always says the same thing. Gene, you guys done more for me than I ever did for any one of you guys. And that's not true. And I always tell him, Coach, you have no idea. When you're young, let me tell you something. You're young, you make mistakes. Everybody thinks they're the man, because wherever high school you come from, whatever state you come from, you were the guy. Everybody thinks that they're the man. It's not until you get on campus where you have to be consistent to play at this level. D1 football is not easy, especially currently now, the way it is with all the big money things going on and all of the recruiting. It's a different game. But even back then, if you were fortunate like I was and a few of my other, teammates that were all Americans and all of that stuff coming out of high school and everybody knew who you were and all of that, it takes a special coach and a special staff, again, to keep you grounded enough where you can reach the pinnacle of your success and be as good as you need to be. And Coach Nehlen was great at that. He really understood and had the patience to have, you're talking about 105 guys. That's 105 different personalities. So he really had the patience to deal with whatever your issues were, the immaturities and all that stuff. I knew I drove him crazy.
Yeah.
So, I say it once I got older, Coach, I really appreciated your patience and everything that I learned from you, because we laugh about it, about like business. And he always says, you have a successful business, but you have to do the right things to build it, because if you don't build it the right way, it certainly will fall. That's the same exact thing that I feel about building successful programs. You have to build that thing the right way. And that comes with bringing in the right coaches. That comes with bringing in the right personnel. That comes with bringing in the right student athletes. That comes with bringing in the families that's going to buy into, not everybody's going to play.
Right.
Not, everybody's being recruited and student athlete, there's a reason why it's student athlete. And a lot of these young people don't understand, if you are not successful in the classroom, it's going to be real difficult for you to be successful on the field. So if you come into a university not understanding that you got to go to class first before you even get a chance to get on the field, if that thing is not like this, you're going to have a problem.
Right.
So that's why picking the right school with the right staff is key. And that's another reason why I think, going back to Coach Brown, he is the right guy for our program, because he understands that.
Right. Yeah, I think so too. And I've heard you draw some comparisons in the way they do things, Coach Brown and Coach Nehlen.
Absolutely.
And is that all based on like what you're talking about, the way they recruit and the way they focus on? I guess just explain to me what you mean by that when you compare those two.
Coach Nehlen is a man of morals, right? Right. Great morals in a great leader of men. So when you make decisions based on, he's a God-fearing man. So when you make decisions based on that versus based on how much money you're going to get and all of that, you tend to make better decisions because they're typically organically the right decisions. There is no agenda that's going to put you in a different, well, I'm making a decision because I don't like this person. No, you're going to make the right decision because of your character. So when I see Neal Brown, I see tints of that in him, where he seems to be the type of man. He's a family man. He's a spiritual guy. Right. He seems to be the whole. It's not just about money and all this. It's about, I got to do this thing the right way. And when you tend to do that, that means you're going to recruit the right way. You're going to hire the right coaches. That means you're going to hire the right support staff, because you truly do understand this thing is bigger than you. It's not just about you. You want to make this as good as it was before you got there. Your goal is to make it even better. He's that type of guy, and that's how Coach Nehlen was. It's not just about, I want to win these games because I want to get a big contract. That's going to come regardless. That's going to come with it. That's part of the whole package. But what I mean by those two being very similar, I mean as far as their character, their morals, the fiber of the man, you know what I mean? You don't really find that too much when you get to these levels, because these contracts are so freaking big. Mm-hmm. These guys get in, they sign these multi-million-dollar a year contracts. You get in, you already know if you don't win a certain percentage of the games and they get rid of you, they're going to buy you out. You're pretty much good for 2-3 years because you've never made that much. You're not going to make that much money working a regular job, right?
Right.
So that's the reason why I say it's incumbent upon having the right person take that job. And that's why I'm so happy with Coach Brown, because I watched him at Kentucky. I watched him at Troy. I watched the kind of games he won. I watched the staff that he built. I watched the kids that he brought in. And when we got him, I told my wife, I said, man, he's going to, from a character standpoint, he's going to bring the West Virginia brand back to where it needs to be as far as the respect level of our university. Right. Because prior to that, you started to hear different things and different rumblings, and it wasn't good. It wasn't going in the right direction.
Right.
So I was glad that we hired him.
Right. Got one of my viewers here named Bulldog JC. He's a Georgia fan, but he says, I remember watching you, sir, play college football in the late 80s.
Wow. Thank you, sir. Right. I appreciate it.
So that's a Georgia fan there that has seen that, remembers you back in your playing days.
Wow. Listen, I have to admit now, I'm kind of liking what Georgia's doing now. I have to admit.
They look pretty good, don't they?
They're looking pretty good. Yes.
That defense.
Yes, they are.
If you don't allow any points, you don't need an offense, do you?
Listen, that's the truth.
Not that their offense is bad, but
yeah, but you know what? I like Georgia. I've always liked Georgia, to be honest with you. I've always kind of, no Sean Marino's from New Jersey. I did like Herschel Walker when he played at Georgia. There's a few backs there that they had some great ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I like defense. I think defense wins championships. You know what I mean? If you kick a field goal and your defense is good, you can win the game 3-0. So, I love the whole thing. When we were good back in the day, our defense spoke for itself. And I think we're going to get back to that point here, hopefully within the next year or two, where, I can see our defense stepping up and getting better and better each week. And hopefully they contend on that, through the rest of this season, so we can build on something for next season.
Absolutely. I want to ask you a question about something. What do you think about some of the rumblings about Coach Brown have been, well, he needs to delegate the play calling duties to somebody else. Now, I've heard rumblings that he did that on Saturday, and I don't know for sure. But what do you think about a head coach calling their own plays? Do you like that or not?
I think it's difficult, to be honest with you. I think it's a lot, because you have to micromanage the entire game.
Right.
I really do. Me personally, I hope that he does delegate to someone else. Get yourself a really good OC.
Yeah.
And that way you can truly focus on every aspect of the game without having to just worry about, calling the plays. And it's too much, in my humble opinion.
Right.
I think he would do good if he got himself a really good offensive coordinator.
I agree with that, and I think most fans do. Even though, I'm a pro Coach Brown guy, but I would like to see, because I think even though he did it at Troy, I think when he came to West Virginia, he's got so many more responsibilities here with the media and just everything that's entailed in that. There's, like you said, in the course of a game, even though the in-game stuff may not be that much different, it's the stuff leading up to the game, the prep leading up to the game. He's got so much of his time that require, he's got to do all these media interviews and all this other stuff that he probably didn't have to do at Troy.
Absolutely.
He had more time to game plan,
Right. It's a different level. And that's the thing. And again, no disrespect, because there's a lot of people that don't understand the difference. Now, because you are where you are, I used to always tell my son this, you are who recruits you. So you start to see that when you go to these different levels, you start to see these different games. Now, you're at a smaller level than expectations of what they are. You at a bigger level, a Power 5 level, than the expectations of what they are. So that means everything that comes along with that changes. Like you said, the prep during game week changes. It's a totally different deal than if you are at, a much smaller division or a much smaller school. And that's to be expected.
Right.
That's why I think a good OC, a good DC, you can get to sit back and watch the whole thing, from the perch where you're supposed to be as the header, and you see if you don't like something and you get a chance to implement. No, you know what? I think I want to do this. Let's go through the script of plays. On third down and short, I want to do this. On second down and 8, I want to do this. On first down and 10, I want to do this. If we get into this situation, and I think you get to see it a little bit differently when you're not inundated and also calling the plays versus giving it to somebody else, taking your hands off it completely, and then allow yourself objectively to also script. There's nothing wrong with scripting the offensive series with your coordinator.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And then saying, I'm in the headsets too. So if you call something out that I want to switch up, I can do that on the fly.
Right. Yeah, I have no issue with that at all. Because I think that's what Dana used to do when he finally delegated that to Jake Spavital, I believe it was.
Yes. Yep.
They did the same thing. Dana always had last say, but he pretty much let Jake make the calls.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with
something he didn't like, he'd override him, but he didn't have to do that very often.
Right, and there's nothing wrong with that, and I think it helps your psyche because you don't get caught up. First off, you don't get caught up behind the chains. So what I mean by that is, you ever see in games where the time clock becomes a problem, and that's because you're doing too much. And you're not sitting back and really focused on watching the whole game. You miss things when you got 3 and 4 different responsibilities.
Yep.
It's too much.
Yep.
So I would totally give it to an OC that I trust and say, we're going to script these plays together, but you're going to call it. And I'll hear it in my headset. And if I like it, we're going to go with it. And if not, and I'm not going to even waste any time, because we're going to script these plays, obviously, throughout the whole week. So I know exactly what's coming. Situational football.
Right.
You do it enough, you already know, what you got on first and 10, your marquee plays, second and 5, second and 8, third and 2. You already know what your scripted plays are.
Right, exactly. Bulldog made another comment. He says, I thought you were a great tailback at West Virginia. You could cut back on a dime.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Tell him I appreciate that comment. I really do. I had a really good offensive line, I'll tell you that. So I'll shout out to that offensive line. Those guys were really, really good up front. Yeah. And I'll share another thing. I'll share another thing with you, which is so different now than what it was back then. Myself, A.B. Brown, Andre Johnson, Craig Taylor, we all shared the football. So there was a stable of running backs. A lot of people didn't understand. Any one of us probably could have been 1,500-yard, 1,200-yard rushers, but none of us carried the ball 20 times a game.
Right.
And that's the difference now also, where you talk about the power of team and truly respecting, your team and all the other backs. We were rooting for each other.
Right.
Because we knew if I'm in the game, they're rooting for me to do well. Andrew's in the game, rooting for him to do well. AD's in the game, want him to do well. That's their strength in numbers, and we really respected each other's abilities because we were all different type of runners. So that's the thing too that I see nowadays. Some of these young fellas. Of course, you want the ball 20 times a game, of course. But if you have the luxury of being in a place where you got 2 or 3 other backs or 2 or 3 other, DBs or receivers or whatever the case may be, you're far better off because you're fresh, number one. When somebody else gets in the game, the depth, it was so good back then. We were probably 3 deep, 2 to 3 deep at every position.
Wow.
And that's scary.
That's what this team now lacks. I mean, there are some positions they really only got one guy that plays, a significant amount of snaps, and that's just. I mean, that's not win. You can't win at a high level with that at the Power 5, the Division I level.
It's certainly not consistent. I mean, and you're 100% right. To be consistent, you have to have depth. And see, once again, that's where efficient recruiting comes into play. That's when allowing this man to really recruit and get the type of players he needs in there. That's where all that comes full circle. You're 100% right. You got to have depth. It's hard to win without it. You have, and that's at any level. Pop Warner, high school, pro. You have to have depth.
Right. And I think, you talk about running back depth. I mean, you think the lady at the end of that game the other day, look how much more fresh he was, just because Tony Mathis was able to carry the ball 12 times. That's 12 less times Letty had to get hit. He was able to rest on the sidelines, and by the end of the game, he was able to burn clock out.
Yep.
And get some big runs to help kill the clock.
He's something now. Let me tell you something. I call him Mr. Brown. He gets my ultimate respect. I listen. I love Letty Brown. I think he's a good one. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does on Sundays. I really like his competitiveness.
Yeah.
He's very talented.
Yep, I agree. I like him too. I'm just glad that I'm glad Mathis is finally healthy and able to give him some breathers, because I think he'll be an even better back now the second half of the season.
Oh yeah, it helps. Oh, trust me, it definitely helps.
Yep.
Once again, you getting hit, by these 300-pound D linemen, these 220-pound, 230-pound linebackers consistently. I'm looking at some of these safeties, man. Some of these safeties aren't small guys.
Yeah, they can hit too, man.
Yeah, when they get into you and you carrying the ball 20+ times a game, the wear and tear, it happens quick.
Yep. We got another comment here. This guy might have the best YouTube name I've ever heard. Big Dave's Fat Ass Food Reviews.
Okay.
I'm assuming he's got his own food review channel, but he says, I wish I would have got to come to the game to see you play, Eugene. Unfortunately, I was born in 91, but I watched games on YouTube, and you are definitely a Mountaineer great.
Oh, wow. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the kind words and the kind comments. I appreciate that. Thank you.
But I want to ask you something about the I know you talked about NIL the other night a little bit with Sam the Man. But I wanted to ask you, too, about the National Labor Relations Board came out a few weeks ago and said that players at private schools could actually form a union.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that? What are your thoughts on that?
Let me tell you something. If that were to happen, there'll be no use for the NCAA.
I agree.
And I think they know that too.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that will ever happen, but listen, I look at it this way. I think when this sport has become such a mega dollar business, and it's because of all of the TV revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere down the line, you start to understand that the players, somebody has to look out for the players. Because check this out. Here's what's scary about this. Could you imagine a school telling you that we can only give 20-something scholarships a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they go out and they over recruit. So then when you come in, you were promised a scholarship, you sign your letter of intent, the whole 9 yards, and then you get into camp, and then all of a sudden, there's 2 or 3 junior college kids that's coming into camp right along with you. And then a few years ago, they had a problem with gray shirt. You remember that term?
I have, yeah.
When they're pulling your scholarship after that first semester.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do, right? I like the fact that now school cannot pull your scholarship if you have a better than I think it's a 2.5 or 2.0 GPA
mm-hmm.
per marking period, per semester.
Right.
I like that. Yeah, that in a sense does protect, the player, as long as you're a good student and a student in good standing with the university. My problem with somebody had asked me about the notion of should these players ever, gotten paid, more than just a scholarship. And I said this a while ago. I really wish the NCAA had it right when they said, okay, you can move off campus if you have a better than a 2.5 GPA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your scholarship check pays for your off-campus housing. Well, it would have been just as simple as to give you more money in your scholarship check for your off-campus housing. Let's say if they would have put $3,000 more into your off-campus housing check. There you go.
Yep.
Problem solved, because you would have enough to pay for your rent, because most players live off campus with 2 or 3 other players anyway. So you're literally splitting the rent. I know I did when I went to WVU.
Mm-hmm.
So could you imagine if you had $3,000 more? I think that would have solved where we are right now, where you open Pandora's box and you got the marketing companies involved, and now these guys can go out there and get their own endorsement deals. I'm not begrudging them for doing that, because at the end of the day, if you tell me that a coach is making $3 million a year, but we're calling this collegiate sports.
Yeah, I agree. I'm totally with you on it. I mean, I wasn't, I didn't play college sports, but I've heard a lot of former college athletes talk about how they didn't even have enough money to eat, basically, during the week. If your family doesn't have a lot of money and they can't send you money to eat on every week, which I'm sure a lot of these young men come from rough upbringings.
Absolutely. See, I'm on the other side of that as well. For me personally, let's use the SEC, for instance. If you look up their TV contract right now, I guarantee you it's about $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're spreading that money out through those universities. That's a lot of money. Yeah. So in order for your university to be successful and make, these coaches where they're getting bonuses, if you have the #1 recruiting class in the country, you're getting a bonus as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the recruiter that brought in the #1 recruiting class in the country, in your contract, you're getting a bonus. So when you start to understand the business of major college sports, it is a big business. For anybody to think that it's to try to downplay that's disingenuous. We know it's a big multi-business. So outside of that multi-business, there has to be something where the player is starting to understand, like you said, if you go, my mother couldn't afford to send me money every week. You know what I mean? So there has to be not I'm not saying an even playing ground, but there has to be a way where these players can also have something where they don't have to stress their parents, because if you don't come from that financial background, your parents will be stressed to have to try to scrape up money to send you, and it shouldn't be that way. if you're on a full scholarship, like I said, the simple answer would have been they should have just put more money into the housing part of your scholarship. So when you do move off campus, there you go. Right. That's not hard to do.
Absolutely.
Because now you open up Pandora's box, and that box is never closing again.
I know it. It's changing. It's going to change the nature of the sport, or of the whole, not just football, but the whole collegiate athletics environment.
Absolutely.
Culture.
I agree.
Have you had a chance to see the new facilities yet at the stadium?
I haven't. The last time I was on campus, let me see, it was when I went January of 2020. So I didn't see what's currently there right now. Okay. My son has been back, and he told me it is tremendous. So I'm looking forward, God willing, to getting down there and seeing it. The schedule is going to be crazy here over the next few months, but hopefully I'll get a chance to go walk the facility sometime in the summer, God willing.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I wish I was able to see. I was finally able to go. You know, they have the area that's open for fans there, the Hall of Traditions.
Yes,
I was able to go see it for the first time the week of the Texas Tech game.
What do you think?
I actually videoed it and posted a live virtual tour on my page. So that was pretty cool. So just to see the evolution of the program through time, and that was really neat. Wow. Anybody that's a WVU fan, I encourage them to go see that because they've got all the trophies in there that from the ball games and everything. It's really cool.
It's really cool. I was teasing President Gee, not too long ago. I said, "Well, they ain't have any of this when I was down there. I'm a little bit jealous."
Yeah. But no, it's going to do nothing but help them in recruiting because that stuff matters.
Oh yeah, absolutely it does. Again, top flight programs. Oh, it definitely matters because kids get caught up in the color of the uniforms and how big the campus is and how big the stadium is and all the bells and whistles that go along with it. And I get it. I get it. It comes with the territory.
Right. Yep. Well, listen, Eugene, I really appreciate you coming on. I don't want to take up any more of your time.
Appreciate you having me.
It's been an honor to have you on, and I really hope my viewers have enjoyed. I think my viewers have enjoyed the conversation. And of course, these videos usually get viewed more once you post them, and people go back and watch the replay. But
definitely,
I really appreciate you coming on, and it's been an honor to talk to you. Good luck to you and your wife and your music.
I appreciate you.
I wish you even more success. And
thank you.
I apologize I wasn't able to play that video, but anyone who wants to can go on YouTube and check out the 304 song that his wife, her name's Ny'a.
Yeah, N-Y apostrophe A.
His wife Ny'a wrote a song called 304 that was the theme song for his documentary, which I've posted a link to in my description box. There's also a link to his Napoleon's Corner segment that he does with Skylar Callahan for Sports Illustrated. That's also in the description box. And just, you can find him on anywhere on the internet. Google Eugene Napoleon and he'll come up. But I really appreciate you coming on, Eugene, and maybe we can do this again sometime.
Listen, absolutely. It'd be my pleasure and honor. Like I said, it's always great to talk some Mountaineer football and some other things. I'm humbled and appreciative that you had me on. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I appreciate you again, and you enjoy the rest of your night.
Appreciate you. You do the same. Let's go Mountaineers.
Let's go Mountaineers.